So welcome to round 5. I didn't even stop the play. I didn't even stop the record button. I'm still continuing. So round 5 now, and this will be the third part of the near discussion where we started looking at GRT, and we saw that they're near is the first non-EVM chain they're indexing. So now we want to dive into near, and we want to see what's unique about them. And then, I even have this tab open on Aurora's Twitter. I totally forgot where that came from, but I'm guessing it came from Near somehow. So maybe that's something we want to look into. And we're just continuing down this rabbit hole of discovering projects and learning about the unique technology that they're implementing and just staying up to date with this incredibly fast moving industry. So this is brain fried discussion on blockchain technology. This is not financial advice. This is purely educational. This is just my own engineer's perspective on this. I'm not an expert in this field in any sense. I'm just an engineer, and I like to analyze different projects from a technical perspective. So we're diving back in, and we were just in last video, we ended off with sharding. YouTube is limiting my videos to 15 minutes. So that's the whole reason why we had to cut it off. So we ended the last video talking about kind of getting a broad idea of what sharding is. And we really just landed on the fact that sharding is just splitting up your database into smaller databases for smaller machines that are distributed can chew on them easier. And we want to highlight some points in this discussion here between, let me get their names real quick. Alex Skidanoff from Near and Anatoly Yakovenko, sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, CEO of Solana. And we're just going to point out a few things. We're not going to go through everything. Hopefully you can hear the audio. If not, I'll have to redo this whole video.
What you see, the beauty of sharding, right, is that you can run on on the cheapest instance. Well, not on the cheapest, but on a very cheap instance, and that's going to be that's going to be enough to process a shard.
So here's my counter argument. I don't think sharding is actually a scaling solution. It's a decentralization solution. And I think people think of it as scaling because it, on the surface, increases the capacity of the entire network. But the price that you pay per transaction is going to be based on the capacity of the single shard. Because what that price is the spam resistance.
So I think the way I'm thinking about this is similar to what I just talked about, where the capacity of the shard becomes limited, so you're kind of just scaling the whole problem down. And he's just saying it sounds exactly from what I just said.
If you lower it below that, then your full shard gets spammed out of existence, right? And you can't afford that. You can't afford a single shard to be at capacity because that means all those users, all those applications are dead. They have to now do this long ass migration thing to another shard, right? That's like a huge attack vector. So it increases decentralization. It doesn't actually scale.
But wouldn't you agree that the cost of a single transaction in a shard, it doesn't need to be any higher than the cost of a transaction in a centralized, in a single chain system, right?
No.
Because the cost of spamming will be the same.
If it's running in the same hardware, right? So if it's running on if it's a network that is like optimized like ours, right? That means that we give you 50,000 TPS worth of capacity. Our price for spam is that much lower, right? So that's kind of like I think the main trade-off. It shouldn't be called a scaling solution. It's a decentralization solution, which is fine. Decentralized, to the hilt. I mean, that's an awesome problem to solve.
Okay, so that's an interesting point, and that touches on what I was explaining earlier. It's the argument of is it really scaling or is it just decentralizing? And I think my personal opinion is that in the future, maybe not immediately, but in 5 years, these heavier applications are going to start running on the blockchain, and you're going to need to not only shard the information itself, but shard the application itself for processing. So it could, yeah, it could, I see it as a very viable solution. But the counter argument pretty much becomes if you don't shard and you process everything, as a single chain, then the hardware, as kind of adoption increases, your hardware will increase because there's that, was it Amdahl's law? I might not be saying it right, but hardware speed 2x's every, I don't even know the law. I should know it off the top of my head, but whatever that law is. So basically what he's saying is that the current hardware setup, it won't necessarily be limited because the amount of the complexity of things that are happening on the chain are pretty small, right? You're just changing ownership, you're handling small transactions. You're not running an entire application on chain. And the near side is like, well, why not? Like in the future, why not? And yeah, I kind of agree with that. Like, why not? Okay, so I'm gonna fast forward. I have another spot here saved. I'm gonna fast forward to this part. I think I have it marked correctly. Let's see.
Today.
Well, the thing that's actually happening on chain, right, is these small, straightforward things.
That's right, because
Sure, but that's why you have like a few thousand of them, and as long as the glitches are non-correlated.
But also, so let's say
that's the whole point of consensus, right? That whole other thing.
So let's say everything goes well, and within several years, people actually move towards community-driven services, right? Do you think that those gamer boxes, those gamer non-mainframe boxes, can run the entirety of what Google, Facebook, Instagram running today?
Well, the thing that's actually happening on chain, right, is these small, straightforward things where you're just switching ownership. And maybe like you have one giant state machine for price discovery, right? You're not running the Facebook application on chain, right? That's running in the front end. What you're coordinating is like data access, right? And like privacy and like controls, right? Like it's not like this thing that needs to execute in these trust minimizing computers doesn't need to be a Java VM running a big pile of shitty business logic.
But like, why not? Why?
But why not? And so what he ends up saying here, I don't want to leave it out of context, but what he ends up saying here is, he basically says that sharding is not the solution to that problem, to having applications run on chain. Sharding will have the same issues that non-sharding chains would have, and I agree with that completely. But I think within 5 years or so, that could change where it's easier to process sharded from a hardware perspective than it is process non-sharded, possibly. I mean, this is just from stuff that I've learned recently, so I could be completely wrong. The last thing I want to point out here on this sharding topic is this Ethereum 2. I was reading and I found that Ethereum 2 is supposed to be have a sharded implementation, and it spreads across 64 chains. Obviously, we're not talking about Ethereum here, but just to give you some perspective on this major chain is also looking at sharding, so it's not I'm not saying it's a terrible idea, and I'm not saying it's a great idea, but it's definitely viable enough to be used or to be implemented in this upcoming Ethereum release. I don't want to say upcoming, but whatever, Ethereum 2 release. Okay, so I have a little bit of time left, and I think, so as I was saying before, I think I said it in the first part of this, I was looking at the near example. Wait, let's get a price update real quick. Okay, 852 just for completeness. Now you know. I was running through a near example, and I created a testnet account, and they threw in 200 near, I think. I don't know why it says $1,700. I don't know what the, well, I guess that makes sense. I just showed you the price too. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so it's just test money. And then they have these examples here, and one of them was a hello world example that they don't show here, but they do have this. I like this. So you can just kind of, if you don't know where to start with this, and then launch a application and start playing with it. So I think the next one that I'll play with is this counter example in Rust. I've always wanted to learn Rust, so I think that's one thing I'll play with. Let's see if I can launch the example that I did set up. I don't know if I don't think it's still running, so I'm gonna have to relaunch it. But I ran through all the setup script and everything. It was like npm install near CLI and then like near init project. I called it banana, and then I think I ran like a generate example or something. I forget what I did after that, but maybe I can look at the package. Oops. I guess this isn't particularly useful right now. I might have done test. I forget. This was like 2 days ago, so I'm kind of a little foggy, but let's see. We'll run npm run dev, and we'll try to launch this thing again. Oh, here goes my dog about to bark. Let this load. It's by banana version 0.0.1, and we'll let it launch just to show it, just because we have time. See how much time we have. A minute and 30 seconds. So just show this, and then we'll wrap it up. And the next video, the graph did put out an update, so I might discuss that. Maybe I'll show, if I do end up building the new app, maybe I'll show it. What else do we have? There's definitely more, so I can't think of anything, I blank. I always blank at the worst time, so here it is. Bam. Hello world. You can sign in and it'll take you to the near account to sign in. So it's kind of cool. It's like kind of my first distributed app, I guess. And I ran it on near. That was easy. All right, I think that's gonna wrap it up for this one. I'm gonna keep going down this road, keep going down this rabbit hole. So I don't know. If you want to stick with me, you gotta keep up with the videos because I'm trying to keep them up. I'm trying to keep them going. So yeah, we'll see what we got next time. Later.